A man leaned in close and whispered in her ear, "You're in danger. Pretend you're my wife. Don't scream. Just take my hand." Sofia Rivera smoothed the red silk dress against her legs. But it didn't help her feel better. The giant ballroom in the city was everywhere around her. Crystal lights hanging from the ceiling, champagne glasses catching the glow like tiny warnings. She didn't belong here, not among the diamond necklaces and expensive suits. But that was exactly the plan. Nobody would look at a woman in a borrowed dress and cheap shoes and think anything bad. The air smelled like rich perfume and old money. Somewhere in the room, a small band played slow classical music. Sofia's fingers reached up to touch the thin gold chain around her neck. Marco's chain, her twin brother. Before him, her sister Elena had died years earlier. Another wound their family never fully healed from. 6 months. It had been 6 months since they pulled Marco's body from the river. 6 months of pretending to grieve on the outside, while secretly building this moment on the inside. 6 months of letting Agent Russo shape her into exactly who he needed her to be. The chain was warm against her skin. It didn't remind her of why she was here. She already knew that part, cold and clear. It reminded her of who she used to be before grief hollowed her out, before rage moved in to fill the empty space. She'd been practicing this moment for weeks with Russo. Walk up to the target, make contact, plant the small device. Simple, clean, but her heart was slamming against her chest as she scanned the crowd, searching for the one man who stood for everything she wanted to destroy. Sofia spotted him near the bar, Dante Morti. Even in a room packed with powerful people, he stood out. Sharp jaw, dark hair slicked back. A black suit that fit him like it was afraid to disappoint him. But the tattoos crawling up his neck were what really marked him. Detailed patterns disappearing under his collar like secrets he wore on his own skin. Killer, she reminded herself. Crime boss, the man whose organization had caused countless deaths. Probably, almost certainly, including Marco's. She started walking toward him. Every step was deliberate. Her cover story was ready on the tip of her tongue. The crowd seemed to move away from him naturally, the way smaller animals give space to something bigger and more dangerous. Sofia took a breath, running through her opening line one last time. But before she could say a word, before the plan Agent Russo had built so carefully could even begin, Dante turned. His eyes locked on hers, not the way a stranger looks at someone, not even the way a man looks at an attractive woman. This was something different. This was like he already knew her, and underneath that look was something she couldn't name, something that made the hairs on her arms stand up. He crossed the space between them so fast she didn't have a chance to step back. And then he was just there, right in front of her, his whole presence overwhelming, his expensive cologne mixed with something darker underneath. Smoke, leather, danger. The party noise faded to nothing. His hand found the small of her back and pulled her closer, smooth and sure, like he'd done it 1,000 times. His grip was firm but not rough, commanding but somehow protective. Sofia's pulse thundered in her ears as his lips came close to her ear, his breath warm and low. "Don't scream, don't run," he whispered, his voice carrying the weight of 100 things he wasn't saying. "Just take my hand and pretend you're mine." Sofia's shock was completely real. The careful plan she'd built shattered in a single second. Who was watching them? Why would a crime boss be protecting her? And why was every instinct in her body screaming two opposite things? Run, stay. Dante's hand pressed a little firmer at her waist, not painful, but impossible to ignore. His eyes flicked past her toward something in the crowd, not the exit, not his own people, somewhere else. His face wasn't scared, it was calculating, a smile. He murmured softly against her hair. His other hand came up to her face with a gentleness she absolutely did not expect. To anyone watching, they looked like two people in love, a husband greeting his wife, but Sofia could feel the tension locked inside him, could see the sharp alertness in his eyes even while he played the devoted husband. The ballroom suddenly felt much smaller. The glittering crowd didn't look elegant anymore. It looked threatening. Every face could be watching. Every smile could be hiding something dangerous. And the man holding her, the tattooed criminal she had come here to destroy, was somehow the only solid thing in a room that had turned to quicksand. He should be my target, Sophia thought, her mind racing while her body followed his lead. He should be the enemy. So why does his arm around me feel like the only safe thing in this room? But she wasn't stupid enough to trust that feeling. Not yet, not when Marco's blood was barely cold. Sophia's training cut through the shock. She forced her lips into something that looked like a smile. Her hand came up and rested against his chest, his heartbeat steady and strong beneath the expensive fabric. "Who?" she breathed, barely moving her lips. "Don't look," Dante said softly, his thumb traced along her jaw, shifting her face away from whoever he'd spotted. "There's a man in a gray suit near the far pillar, silver hair. He's been watching you since you walked in." Sophia's blood went cold. Agent Russo had promised her she'd be invisible tonight, just another face in a sea of Manhattan's wealthy elite, playing a role until she could get close enough to plant the tracking device. But Russo hadn't said anything about someone watching her, hadn't warned her, unless he knew, unless this was part of a plan she was never told about. That thought made her stomach drop. "I don't understand," she whispered, keeping up the appearance of a sweet reunion. "Why are you helping me?" Dante's jaw tightened. For just a second, something raw passed across his face, something almost vulnerable, before the controlled mask slammed back into place. "Because the man watching you isn't one of mine." He paused, his dark eyes boring into hers hard enough that she forgot to breathe. "And because you're about to get yourself killed playing whatever game you think you're playing." He knew, or at least suspected. Either way, her cover was already broken. Sophia's hand instinctively moved toward the small device hidden in her evening bag. But Dante caught her wrist with lightning speed. "Don't," he said, still gentle, but with iron underneath. "Whatever you're reaching for, whatever you think you need to do, don't. Not here, not now. Then why should I trust you? You shouldn't." His honesty stopped her cold. "But right now, I'm offering you a choice. You can make a scene, try to run, and see how far you get with the man in gray right behind you." His eyes held her steady. "Or you can dance with me. Let me get you somewhere safe, and then we can talk about why a journalist showed up at my event wearing a wire." The floor tilted. How did he know she was a journalist? How much did he know? "I'm not Sofia Rivera," Dante said quietly. "Twin sister of Marco Rivera, pulled from the river 6 months ago. Investigative journalist until you took a leave of absence after his funeral. You've been seen meeting with FBI agents. You quit 3 weeks ago, and tonight you showed up at my event in a dress that doesn't quite fit and shoes that hurt, trying very hard to look like you belong." Terror and fury went to war in Sophia's chest. He'd been watching her, investigating her, knowing her, while she knew almost nothing real about him. "Did you kill him?" The question ripped out of her before she could stop it. "Did you kill my brother?" Something moved in Dante's eyes. Pain maybe, or something that looked like regret, but he didn't get a chance to answer. The man in the gray suit was moving through the crowd, heading toward them. His hand was inside his jacket in a way that made every muscle in Dante's body pull tight. "We're leaving," Dante said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Right now, decide fast. Do you trust me enough to walk out of here alive, or do you want to test your luck with him?" Sophia looked past Dante's shoulder. She caught a glimpse, silver hair, cold eyes, a smooth, hunting kind of grace that reminded her of something predatory. Nothing about that man said FBI agent. Nothing about him said he wanted to protect her. She thought of Marco, of the questions that had kept her awake for 6 months, of the gap between the official story and what her gut had been screaming the whole time. And she thought of Russo's face when he'd explained the mission to her, how his eyes had slid away when she asked direct questions, how he'd always found a way to change the subject. "One condition," she said, making a choice that could either save her life or end it. "You answer my questions, all of them, honestly." Dante's smile was sharp and sad and strangely beautiful. I can't promise honesty about everything, but I can promise I didn't kill your brother. His hold on her waist softened slightly, became something closer to protective. And I can promise that if we don't move in the next 30 seconds, neither of us leaves this room alive. Sophia's fingers curled into the lapel of his jacket. Then let's move. The side exit led to a narrow hallway. Stark white walls, the beautiful illusion of the party falling away behind them, replaced by the real world underneath. Dante moved with the confidence of someone who had memorized every exit long before he walked through the front door. His hand stayed with hers as he pulled her through a maze of back corridors that smelled like floor cleaner and old carpet. Behind them, she heard shouting, footsteps coming fast. Dante picked up their pace but didn't run. Running would draw attention. Running meant they were prey. Act normal, he murmured, steering her around a corner just as a door burst open behind them. He pulled her into a small alcove, pressed her back against the wall, and shielded her with his body. They froze, held their breath. Footsteps pounded past. Sophia could feel every place where they were touching. His chest against hers, his thigh between her legs, his hand spread carefully across her ribs. This close, she could see each thread of his expensive jacket. Could smell cedar and whiskey under the cologne. This close, she could see that the tattoo curling up his neck wasn't just decoration. It was a serpent wound around thorns, fangs showing, beautiful and dangerous, just like the man wearing it. "You have a lot of exit plans," she whispered when the footsteps faded. "I never go anywhere without 3 ways out." Dante's voice was low, right beside her ear. Habit from staying alive this long. And how long is that? Too long. His dark eyes met hers, and for just a moment, she saw something under the surface. Exhaustion, maybe, or old regret. "Come on. My car is in the underground garage." They made it to the loading dock without any more trouble. A black car waited, engine running, windows so dark you couldn't see inside. Every part of Sophia's gut screamed that getting into that car was a terrible idea, that once the doors closed, she'd be completely at Dante Morti's mercy, and men like him didn't have mercy. But going back to Russo meant answering questions she didn't have answers to. Going back meant trusting a handler who might have deliberately set her up to fail. She thought of Marco again, of his last message 3 days before he died. "Sophie, if something happens to me, don't trust the official story. Don't trust anyone. Find the truth yourself." Maybe the truth was sitting in this car. Dante opened the door, his face unreadable. Last chance to change your mind. Sophia climbed inside. The interior was leather and low light. A privacy screen slid up between them and the driver the moment Dante got in. The city slid past the dark windows as they pulled out, a blur of color and shadow. Neither of them said anything for a while. Sophia pressed herself against the far side of the seat, keeping distance. Her heart still hadn't slowed down from the escape. Dante sat with one arm across the back of the seat, relaxed, but she noticed his other hand resting near his hip. Near where she guessed he kept a weapon. "Where are you taking me?" she finally asked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can actually talk without being heard." His gaze was steady, measuring her. "You wanted answers, I'll give you some, but first you need to understand something. What game you think you're playing?" His voice went softer, almost gentle. "You don't know the rules, you don't know all the players, and you really don't know what you've walked into." Anger sparked hot in Sophia's chest. Good anger, welcome anger after all that fear. "Don't talk down to me. I know exactly what I walked into. I've spent months investigating your organization. I know about the drugs, the protection money, the bodies they keep pulling from." "Water, you know what you've been told," Dante interrupted, his tone calm. "You know the story that was very carefully built for you, but you don't know the truth. And you do. I know enough." He shifted in his seat, angling slightly toward her. "Tell me something. When your brother was investigating organized crime, when he was gathering evidence, did he ever mention my name to you?" Sophia hesitated. The truth was, Marco had gone quiet about his work in those final months, protective, even secretive. He'd stopped sharing details, stopped asking her opinion on his leads. She'd thought he was trying to keep her safe from something. She'd been wrong about that. No, she admitted. He didn't mention you specifically, but he mentioned someone, some organization he was trying to expose. How do you know? Because he came to me, Dante said quietly. 2 days before he died, your brother walked into one of my clubs and asked to speak with me directly. Said he had information about corruption inside the FBI. Said he needed help from someone outside the system because everyone inside it was already compromised. Sophia's breath caught. You're lying. I wish I were. Something like grief moved through his expression. I told him to wait. Let me verify what he was claiming. Make sure neither of us was walking into a trap. I told him to stay low and stay safe, and I'd have answers within the week. His jaw pulled tight, a muscle jumping under his skin. 3 days later, he was dead. By the time I understood how real the danger was, it was already too late to save him. So I did the next best thing. I've spent the past 6 months collecting evidence, watching the people who killed him, waiting for the right moment. Why? Sophia demanded, her voice cracking. Why would you care about a journalist you didn't know? Why risk everything? Because I'm tired, Dante said simply. The words seemed to cost him something real. I'm tired of the violence, the lies, the bodies. I've been looking for a way out of this life for years. Your brother offered me something I'd stopped believing in. What? A chance at being better. A chance to be something other than the monster everyone's already decided I am. His smile was bitter and self-aware. The car slowed, turning down into an underground garage. Sophia recognized the building, expensive private residences overlooking the water. The kind of place where apartments sold for tens of millions. Of course, Dante Morty owned something here. You don't know me, Sophia said as the car stopped. You don't know if you can trust me. No. Dante agreed, stepping out and offering his hand to help her. But your brother trusted you enough to die trying to protect you. That's good enough for me. The apartment was everything Sophia expected, and nothing she was prepared for. Floor to ceiling windows with the city spread out beyond them, though heavy curtains softened the view into distant, scattered lights. The inside was surprisingly bare, minimal furniture, empty walls, an apartment that felt more like a stopping place than a home. I don't live here, Dante said, reading her expression. It's a safe house, somewhere to go when I need to think or when things get complicated. How often do things get complicated? More than I'd like. He moved toward the kitchen, opened cabinets, holding an impressive row of whiskey bottles. He poured 2 glasses without asking, slid one across the counter toward her. You should sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to hear. Sophia didn't sit. She stood with the counter between them like a wall she needed there. Just tell me who killed my brother, Agent Russo. The name hit her like something physical. Sophia's fingers tightened around the glass until she thought it might break. No, that's impossible. Russo was Marco's contact at the FBI. He's the one who came to me after the funeral, who offered to help me find justice. He came to you to control you. Dante said quietly, to make sure you didn't ask the wrong questions or look in the wrong places. To turn you into something useful, or something he could get rid of when the time came. You expect me to believe that? Sophia's voice rose, the anger burning. You, a criminal, want me to believe that an FBI agent murdered my brother, that everything I've been told for 6 months is a lie. I want you to look at the evidence. Dante pulled out his phone and connected it to a large screen on the wall. I'm going to show you something. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Sophia wanted to leave, wanted to go back to her apartment and the comfortable weight of her grief and her plans. But Marco's chain was still warm around her neck, and his last words were still there in the back of her mind. Don't trust anyone. Find the truth yourself. Show me, she said. Dante pressed play. The footage was grainy. Security camera from a warehouse area. The timestamp reads 6 months ago, just hours before Marco's estimated time of death. Sophia watched her brother appear on screen, alive, whole, his face moving, clearly talking to someone just outside the frame. Then the second person stepped into view, Agent Russo. Sophia's glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor and she barely noticed. She couldn't look away from the screen. She didn't need sound. The body language told everything. Marco gesturing sharply, refusing something. Resso's face going hard, his hand moving to his hip, the argument building, and then Resso drew his weapon. Dante paused the footage just before the trigger pulled. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know this isn't what you were hoping to see." Sofia couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 6 months of grief, 6 months of planning, 6 months of letting Resso guide her, train her, use her. All of it built on a lie. The man who'd held her at Marco's funeral, who'd promised her justice, who'd carefully shaped her into exactly what he needed. He was the one who killed him. The room tilted. Sofia's legs gave out, and suddenly Dante was there, catching her before she hit the floor, guiding her to the couch with careful hands. She sat completely still, staring at the frozen image of Marco alive, not yet knowing he had seconds left. "Why?" The word came out broken, barely a sound. "Your brother discovered that Resso had been feeding information to Callum Stone for years. Witness locations, raid schedules, evidence being collected on investigations. Marco tracked the money back to an offshore account and came to me with proof, hoping I'd help him expose it." Dante's voice went hollow. "I told him to wait. I wanted to verify everything before acting. I didn't want to move without being certain. And he went to confront Resso alone," Sofia said. "Yes, and Resso executed him to protect the connection between the FBI and Stone." Dante crouched in front of her, careful not to touch, giving her space. "I'm sorry, I should have moved faster. I should have protected him." The apology broke something open inside Sofia. She launched herself forward, both fists hitting his chest with everything her grief had left. "You let him die. You could have stopped this." Dante didn't move to defend himself. He just knelt there, taking every hit, his face carved from stone. "Yes, he trusted you." Her voice climbed higher. "He thought you would help him, I know. And now he's dead, because you weren't fast enough. I know." Dante caught her wrists gently as her arms fell. "I know, Sofia. I've lived with that every single day since." She collapsed against him. Sobs tore out of her, all the tears she'd held back at the funeral, through the investigation, through every lonely month of building her plan for revenge. They all came out now in a rush, and Dante held her, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other around her waist, holding up her weight as she fell apart. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "I've got you." Time disappeared. Sofia cried until there was nothing left. Until her throat was raw and her whole body felt like lead. Slowly the world came back, the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart under her cheek, the surprising gentleness of hands she knew were capable of terrible things. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were swollen, her face a mess. All the composure she'd carefully built for months was completely gone. "I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe that your brother was trying to do the right thing. Believe that he died doing something that mattered." Dante's thumb brushed the tears from her cheek. "And believe that I am going to do everything I can to make sure his death wasn't wasted." "How?" Sofia's voice was small. "How do we fight this? Resso has the entire FBI behind him. Stone has money and connections and power. We use the evidence your brother collected. We expose them both." Dante stood, offering his hand to pull her up. "But we have to be smart. One wrong move and we're both dead." Sofia let him help her up, though she swayed slightly. "I don't even know where to begin. You begin by getting some rest." Dante guided her toward a hallway. "There's a guest room at the end. Everything you need is in there. In the morning, we make a plan." She should have pushed back, should have demanded more answers, more details. But her body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her mind was foggy with shock and grief, and the beginning of something that might one day become acceptance. The guest room was simple and comfortable. White sheets, soft pillows, curtains thick enough to promise real sleep. Dante lingered in the doorway, his expression still unreadable. "Why are you really doing this?" Sofia asked, turning to face him. "What's the actual reason?" For a moment, she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he stepped into the room. The space between them closed. His hand came up to cup her face with a gentleness that shouldn't have belonged to a man like him. "Because your brother reminded me of who I could have been." he said quietly, before this life took everything from me, before I became the thing people warn each other about. His thumb traced her cheekbone. And because you walked into a room full of wolves looking for the truth. That kind of courage, it deserves to be protected. That's not really an answer, no. His smile was sad and honest. The real answer is that I've been looking for a reason to believe I'm more than the monster I see when I look in the mirror. Your brother gave me that reason, and now you're giving me a chance to prove it. He stepped back. His hand fell away, leaving her skin cold where he'd touched. Get some sleep, Sophia. Tomorrow we start planning your brother's justice. He left before she could respond. The door clicked shut behind him. Sophia stood in the middle of the unfamiliar room, her reflection staring back at her from a mirror across the wall. She looked nothing like the confident woman who'd walked into that event a few hours ago. She looked like someone whose whole world had been flipped over. Someone who had just learned that everything she believed was a carefully built lie. She looked like a woman going to war. Good, she thought, gripping Marco's gold chain tight in her fist, because war was exactly what was coming. But first, she had to sleep. Let her mind work through the impossible things Dante had shown her. Get ready for whatever came next. She dropped onto the bed fully dressed, too exhausted to think about changing, and closed her eyes. Sleep came faster than she expected, pulling her under into darkness, but her dreams were full of security footage. Of Russo's face, of the moment before the gun fired, of all the signs she should have seen, of every way she had failed. Sophia woke to unfamiliar quiet, no street noise from below, no neighbors' voices through thin walls. Just the soft hum of expensive air conditioning and the distant, muffled presence of the city far beneath. For a disorienting second, she didn't know where she was. Then it all came back in pieces, the event. Dante's warning, the security footage, Marco's face frozen in his last moments. She sat up, still in yesterday's clothes, wrinkled and uncomfortable. The clock on the nightstick and said 6:47 in the morning. She'd slept barely 5 hours, but her body refused to stay still. Grief and rage were poor sleeping companions. The smell of coffee pulled her out of the room. She found Dante in the kitchen. Dark jeans, a black t-shirt that showed more of his tattoos, intricate patterns winding down both arms like stories written in ink. He looked up as she came in, his expression measured, careful. Coffee. He was already pouring a second cup. Please, Sophia moved to the counter, keeping space between them. In the harsh morning light, everything from last night felt almost unreal. The crying, the comfort, the vulnerability, all of it felt like something that had happened to someone else. Dante slid the cup across the marble counter. Black, no sugar. How did he know that? You've been watching me, she said. Not a question, since you started meeting with Russo, yes. I needed to understand who you were, what you knew. His honesty was disarming. I needed to know if you were a threat or a victim. And what did you decide? Both. Something that wasn't quite a smile crossed his lips. You're dangerous because you ask the right questions. And you're in danger because of those exact same questions. Sophia took a sip of coffee, using the moment to study him. In the daylight, Dante looked younger than she'd expected. Maybe early 30s, though the hardness in his eyes suggested someone who'd lived much longer than that. The tattoos on his neck disappeared under his shirt collar, and she caught herself wondering how far they extended. What other things he was carrying under there? What happens now? She asked. Now we figure out what your brother actually found. What evidence he collected that someone thought was worth killing for. Dante moved around the counter, keeping a respectful distance. You said Russo gave you a small device to plant on me last night. Do you still have it? Sophia reached for her evening bag, still sitting where she dropped it. She pulled out the small device, holding it up. This, he said it was tracking software. May I? She handed it over. She watched him examine it with the efficiency of someone who had done this kind of thing many times. He moved to a laptop on the desk, booted it up, plugged the device in. His fingers moved across the keyboard, lines of code scrolling by faster than she could follow. It's not tracking software. he said after a moment. It's fake evidence. Financial records designed to show payments from me to various criminal operations. If you'd successfully planted this, it would have given the FBI everything they needed to arrest me, but that was the whole point. Dante turned to face her, his expression grave. Think about it. Russo sends you, an untrained civilian with no field experience, into a dangerous situation to plant evidence on one of the most careful criminals in the city. What are the chances you actually succeed? Sophia's stomach dropped. He expected me to fail. He expected you to get caught or killed. Either way, you'd be removed as a problem, and he'd still have complete cover. Dante's voice softened just slightly. You were never meant to leave that event alive. The words should have terrified her. Instead, they lit something cold and focused in her chest. Then why warn me? Why not let it happen? Because your brother asked me to protect you. He didn't even know me. Not really. You said he only came to you 2 days before. He knew enough? Dante's jaw pulled tight. We talked for 3 hours that night. He told me about his investigation, about the evidence he'd gathered, and he told me about his sister, the journalist who inspired him to chase truth in the first place, the twin who'd lost their father to corruption and refused to ever let injustice go unanswered. Sophia's throat closed. He talked about our dad. He said you blamed yourself for not seeing the signs, that you'd spent years trying to prove your father's death wasn't an accident. Dante moved slightly closer, his presence steady. He said if anything happened to him, you would do something reckless, something brave and stupid and dangerous. He was right. I know. That's why I've been watching you, waiting for the moment Russo would finally make his move. Dante's hand lifted almost toward her, then dropped back to his side. I made a promise to your brother. I don't break my promises. Sophia wanted to believe him, desperately. But trust wasn't something she could afford anymore. Show me more. Show me real proof that Russo killed Marco. Not just security footage, actual evidence I can use. There's something you need to understand first. Dante turned back to the laptop, pulling up files. Russo didn't act alone. He's part of something bigger, and the man at the top of it, the one who's been pulling strings for years, is Callum Stone. The name meant nothing to Sophia. Old money, old power. On paper, he's a businessman and a philanthropist. In reality, he runs half the criminal operations on the East Coast, but he does it through other people, through carefully maintained distance. Dante pulled up photos, Stone at charity events, Stone shaking hands with politicians. Stone looking every inch the respected, harmless billionaire. He uses people like Russo to do his dirty work while keeping his own hands completely clean. And you think he ordered Marco's death? I know he did. Dante's voice was flat, certain. Your brother discovered the connection between Russo and Stone. He found financial records, communications, evidence that could bring Stone's entire operation down. That's why he had to die. Sophia stared at Stone's photographs, memorizing every detail of his face. Silver hair, cold eyes, a smile that never quite reached them. He looked like someone's kind grandfather. He looked nothing like a killer. Where's the evidence? She asked. Where's what Marco actually found? That's what we need to figure out. Dante closed the laptop and turned to face her fully. Your brother was very careful about keeping evidence safe. He told me he'd hidden it somewhere personal, somewhere only someone who really knew him would think to look. Sophia's mind moved through possibilities. Marco's apartment had been cleared out months ago, his office too. She'd gone through everything herself, searching for clues, finding only ordinary possessions and everyday things. Unless the music box, she breathed. Dante's expression sharpened instantly. What music box? He gave it to me for our 18th birthday. Vintage, plays an old love song. I kept it on my bookshelf. Sophia's heart started racing. 3 days before he died, he came to my apartment. Spent 20 minutes just standing there looking at it. I thought he was being sentimental, but he was making sure you'd remember it. Dante finished. Where is it now? My apartment. Sophia was already reaching for her shoes. We have to go get it. Dante caught her arm, stopping her. Your apartment will be watched. Russo knows you went off script last night. He'll have people on your building waiting to see if you show up. Then we need a distraction. We need more than that. Dante pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like Surveillance reports. We need to know exactly who's watching and whether they're Russo's FBI people or Stone's people. And we need a way out if it goes wrong. Frustration burned in Sophia's chest. So what do? Just wait here while the evidence sits in my apartment. We plan, we prepare, and we move when the odds are actually in our favor. Dante's tone was firm, but not unkind. I understand why you want to move now. But rushing in without thinking is how people die. He was right. She knew he was right. But every hour they waited was another hour Russo and Stone had to cover their tracks, to eliminate witnesses. To bury everything deeper, how long? She asked. 24 hours, maybe 48. Dante set his phone down and gave her his full attention. In the meantime, I need everything you have. Everything Russo told you. Everything he had you do. Every detail matters, Sophia nodded. She sat on the couch, and for the next 2 hours, she walked him through every month since the funeral. Russo's initial approach, the training sessions, the cover story they'd built together, the mission briefings, the other agents she'd been introduced to, the equipment she'd been given, the locations she'd been asked to scout. Dante listened without interrupting once. His expression grew darker with every revelation. He was thorough, Dante said when she finished, building a complete profile on you. Learning your habits, your weak points, your reasons. Also, he could use you, then remove you. So I'm just supposed to wait here while you risk your life for my brother's evidence. Yes. No hesitation, no soft framing. Because if something goes wrong, you're the only one who can actually finish this. You're a journalist. You know how to take evidence and turn it into something the world can't ignore. Sophia wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was capable of helping, of doing more than hiding. But the truth was she had no training for this kind of operation. She'd be a distraction at best. At worst, she'd get them both killed. I hate this, she muttered. Good. Hate keeps you sharp. Dante's hand rested briefly on her shoulder, a short touch that gave more comfort than it should have. You'll have a calm in your ear the whole time. You'll hear everything, see everything through the body camera. If something goes wrong, there's a car in the garage with the keys in it and everything you need in the trunk. Cash, identification, everything to disappear. His expression went grave, final. I'm not letting you die for this, Sophia. Your brother made me make that promise. It stands even if it costs me everything. The words should have sounded over the top. Instead, they sounded like a vow, like something Dante had decided somewhere deep in his bones. When? Sophia asked, her throat tight. Tonight, 3 a.m, minimal traffic, minimal witnesses. My people will create a distraction at the coffee place across the street, a small kitchen fire. Nothing serious, but enough to pull attention. While Russo's watchers are focused on that, I go in through the service entrance, get the music box, and get out. And if they're watching the service entrance too, then I improvise. Dante's smile was quick and sharp. I'm very good at improvising. The rest of the day moved with painful slowness. Dante made calls throughout, coordinating with people Sophia never got names for, speaking in shorthand she couldn't decode. She tried to focus on the files, on memorizing faces and names and connections. But her mind kept drifting to everything that could go wrong that night. Around noon, Dante ordered food. They ate without much talking, both deep in their own thoughts. Tell me about your brother, Dante said suddenly. Sophia looked up, surprised. Not the investigation, just him. Why? Because I want to understand what I'm actually fighting for. What he died trying to protect. Something in how he said it made her set down her fork. He was brilliant. Funny, he had this terrible habit of writing notes on everything. Napkins, receipts, random scraps of paper. Our apartment always looked like a small tornado had moved through. Dante's expression softened slightly. What else? He was stubborn. Once he decided something was right, nothing could change that. Our dad was exactly the same way. Sophia's fingers found Marco's chain around her neck. After Dad died, Marco became obsessed with truth, with making sure people in power couldn't just hide behind their money and their connections. He gave up a well-paying job to become an investigative journalist, made almost nothing, lived in a tiny apartment, and was happier than he'd ever been. He sounds like someone I would have been glad to know better. He would have liked you too. Eventually, a small smile found her, after he got past being suspicious of you. Smart man. They fell quiet again, but the silence was different now. Less like two strangers thrown together. More like something starting to become trust. As evening came, Dante's whole energy shifted. He became focused, precise, checking equipment with the efficiency of someone who had done this for years. Sophia watched him prepare, noticing the weapons he concealed under his jacket, the way he moved through the space like he was already running through scenarios in his head. This was the other part of him, the part that had built something powerful through violence and reputation. You're staring, Dante said without looking up. I'm trying to figure out how both versions of you exist in the same person. Good luck? I haven't figured it out myself yet. At 2:30 in the morning, they moved to the surveillance room. Dante fitted Sophia with an earpiece and showed her how to monitor the camera feeds that would follow his movement. His people were already in position outside, invisible, waiting for his signal. Last chance to tell me this is a terrible idea, Dante said, checking his watch. It's a terrible idea, Sophia confirmed, but do it anyway. He smiled, quick and real. Then his expression shut down into something cold and steady. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, you leave. No trying to be a hero. No coming after me. You get out. You finish what your brother started. Understood? Sophia met his eyes, understood. Dante moved toward the door, then stopped, turned back. He crossed the room to where she sat, took her face in both hands and pressed a brief, fierce kiss to her forehead. Stay safe. Then he was gone. Sophia was alone with the monitors and the silence and a heart she couldn't slow down. The cameras showed Dante slipping out of the building, moving through shadows like he was part of them. She watched him navigate the streets, avoiding the obvious watchers posted around her building. At exactly 3 in the morning, the distraction hit. A small commotion at the coffee place. Smoke, people shouting, the watchers turning to look. Dante slipped through the service entrance like he wasn't even there. I'm in. His voice came through her earpiece, quiet and controlled. Heading to your floor now. 4th floor, apartment 4C, Sophia said. There's a loose piece of the door frame near the bottom. I keep a spare key there. Through his body camera, she watched him find the key, open the door, and step into the familiar, comfortable chaos of her home. Books everywhere, research papers stacked on every surface, Marco's old jacket still draped over the couch where she'd left it. The music box is on the bookshelf, she said, left side, 2nd shelf from the top. The camera panned across the room and Sophia's breath stopped. Someone had been here, papers slightly out of place, cushions not quite where she left them. Dante, she said, someone searched. I see it. His voice stayed even, but she heard what was underneath, getting the box now. The camera focused on it, delicate, antique, exactly as she remembered. His hands came into frame, lifting it carefully from the shelf. Then the door exploded inward. Gun. Dante's voice went sharp. The camera spun as he dove behind the couch. The music box clutched against his chest. Sophia caught flashes of movement, heard the crack of gunfire. Dante. She shouted into the mic, but he was in no position to respond. She watched helplessly through the camera as he returned fire, moving with terrifying precision, taking down one attacker. Then another, but there were more, too many, getting out. Dante said through clenched teeth. The camera showed him crashing through her window onto the fire escape outside. Gunfire chased him, metal pinging as bullets hit the railing around him. He came down fast, jumped the last several feet to the alley below, and ran. The camera feed jolted wildly as he sprinted through narrow passages. Jumping obstacles, the music box still in one hand. Behind him she could hear shouts, pounding footsteps, heading to extraction point 2. Dante said, his breathing rough. They were ready for me. Someone gave us up. Sophia's stomach dropped. Someone inside Dante's organization. Stone had placed his person deep enough that even Dante had missed the signs. She watched through the camera as he led his pursuers through the industrial area, using every inch of his knowledge of the streets. He was good, more than good, but the people chasing him were trained too. 3 blocks out, Dante's voice cut in, losing them in the feed went black. Dante, Sophia's voice rose. Dante, a nothing but static. She stared at the dead screen. He could be hurt, captured, dead. She'd sent him in there for Marco's evidence, And now the secure phone on the desk rang. Sophia grabbed it with shaking hands. "Hello. It's me." Dante's voice, strained but alive. "I'm okay. Lost them in the underground tunnels, but we have a problem. The informant. Yes, someone knew exactly where I was going. Someone who had access to my plans." A pause. "I'm coming back. But Sophia, we need to move. This safe house is compromised. Where do we go?" "Somewhere they won't think to look." His voice carried something grim and settled. "Somewhere we can look at what your brother left us without any more interruptions." "Did you get it?" "I got it." A long pause. "Sophia, whatever's inside, it's worth killing for. We almost died tonight for this. Then let's make sure it was worth it." They met at a different location, a warehouse in a quieter part of the city that Dante said only 2 people in the world knew about. He arrived 30 minutes after their call, limping slightly, his jacket torn, blood soaking through a makeshift bandage on his arm. "You're hurt," Sophia said, reaching for him without thinking. "It grazed me." "Looks worse than it is." Dante waved off her concern and set the music box carefully on a workbench. "You need stitches later." He was already focused entirely on the box, examining it with gentle, careful hands. "Help me open this." Sophia moved beside him. Her fingers trembled as she wound the small key. The old love song played, tiny and sweet, achingly familiar. She'd heard it 1,000 times, never knowing it might hold her brother's final message. "There," Dante said softly, pointing to a thin seam in the base, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. "Hidden compartment." Together they worked the latch. The false bottom came free, revealing a small leather-bound notebook. Sophia's breath caught as she lifted it out. She recognized it, the worn leather cover. It was one of Marco's notebooks, the kind he always carried. She turned to the first page, her vision blurred. Page after page of handwritten notes in Marco's distinctive, messy writing. Payments, meetings, names. This wasn't just evidence of Resso's corruption. It was a complete map of Stone's entire operation. "My God," Dante breathed, reading over her shoulder. He documented everything. Every financial transfer, every piece of tampered evidence, every witness who was pressured or silenced. "This is enough to bring down dozens of people." Sophia turned pages with shaking hands. Marco had been so careful, so thorough. Dates, times, amounts, locations, everything needed to build a case that no lawyer could argue away, and it had gotten him killed. "There's more," Dante said, pointing to notes written in the margins. "Account numbers. Offshore holdings." He tracked the money all the way to the top, to Stone. To Stone. "This proves he's been running criminal operations for at least 5 years. Maybe longer." But it was the last entry that made Sophia's blood stop moving, written just days before his death. "Tonight, I'm meeting with DM. If something happens to me, Sophie needs to find him. He's the only one who can finish this." The music box has everything. Bank codes on page 47. Witness locations on page 63. Stone's operation schedule on page 78. "Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't keep her away from all this. Tell her I love her more than anything. And tell her to trust Diem. He's not the monster everyone says he is. He's trying to find his way back. Just like I was." Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she read her brother's final words. He had known the risk, had planned for the possibility that he might not make it, and he trusted Dante Morty to protect her. "He believed in you," she whispered, "even knowing what you were, what you'd done. He believed you could be better." Dante's expression was devastated. "I didn't deserve his faith. Maybe not. But you have a chance to earn it now." Sophia wiped her eyes and forced herself to focus through the grief. Page 78. The operation schedule. Dante flipped to the page. His expression shifted as he read, becoming sharp and calculating. "Stone holds a council meeting once a month. All his lieutenants, his financial people, his legal team, everyone who keeps the operation running. When's the next one?" 4 days from now. At the Astor Hall, disguised as a charity auction. Dante looked up, something dangerous and precise moving in his eyes. "The same venue where we met." Sophia's mind moved fast. "We could crash it. Bring the right authorities with the evidence. Catch everyone in one place with no way out. Too risky." Stone will have security everywhere. And we still have the informant problem. We don't know who we can trust in law enforcement. Dante tapped the notebook thoughtfully. We need something more precise. More devastating. What if we don't crash the meeting? The idea came to her as she was speaking. What if we become part of it? Dante's gaze snapped to hers, understanding landing, the marriage contract. What marriage contract? He hesitated, weighing something, then finally said it. 15 years ago, your father made a deal with my family. A marriage contract between me and his eldest daughter. When your sister died in the accident, the contract should have ended. But legally, it transferred to the next living female heir. The meaning hit Sophia before he could say it. Me, you. Dante's voice was careful, controlled. According to that contract, we are legally engaged. It wasn't binding until both parties became adults. Before that, it was only symbolic. But it means that any assets I hold, any territory I control, become jointly owned upon marriage. Sophia's head spun. My father arranged this. Why would he? To build an alliance, to create protection. The same reasons families have done arrangements like this for centuries. Dante's expression was hard to read. He thought it would keep you safe. Instead, it made me a target. Yes. If Stone eliminates you before any marriage happens, the contract becomes void. He can move against me without legal complications, but if we're already married, you become untouchable. Killing you would only strengthen my legal claim over the territory Stone wants. The logic was cold, calculated, exactly the kind of thinking that kept people alive in this world. But the idea of actually marrying someone she barely knew. You want me to actually marry you, Sophia said slowly, legally. I want to keep you alive. Dante's hand came to rest on her shoulder, gentle but steady. The marriage is a tool, a weapon we can use against Stone. If you're at his council meeting as my wife, he can't touch you without showing everyone what he really is. And after Stone is finished and you're free, I'll sign whatever papers you want. You walk away with your brother's justice done and your life intact. His dark eyes searched hers. I'm not asking you to tie yourself to me forever. I'm asking you to trust me enough to use this as a strategy. Sophia studied his face, looking for the lie, finding only something raw and honest. This man had done terrible things. She didn't doubt that had built something through violence and fear. But he was also the man who had risked everything tonight to get Marco's evidence, who had made a promise to a dead man and kept it even when it almost cost him his life. What do you actually get out of this? She asked, really. What's in it for you? Dante's jaw tightened. For a long moment, she thought he'd deflect. Then, my grandmother used to tell me that every choice either builds you or tears you down. That we're the ones responsible for which direction we go. His voice dropped, became unguarded in a way she hadn't seen before. I've been tearing myself down for 15 years. Your brother offered me a chance to build something instead. To be someone I don't feel sick looking at. You want redemption. I want to prove I'm more than the monster everyone's already decided I am. Dante's hand moved from her shoulder to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Your brother saw something in me worth saving. I'm still trying to figure out if he was right. Sophia's heart was slamming against her ribs. She should have been terrified, should have been calculating escape routes and backup plans, but standing in that warehouse with Marco's notebook between them and danger closing in from every side, all she felt was a fierce and quiet certainty. 4 days, she said. That's not much time to plan a wedding. Dante's smile was sharp and genuine and strangely soft all at once. I can be very efficient when I'm motivated. Then let's do it. Sophia made the choice that could either save her life or destroy it completely. Let's get married and tear Stone's empire down. Relief moved across Dante's face. He pulled her closer, and Sophia felt the solid reality of him against her. For a moment, they just stood there, breathing the same air, balanced on the edge of something dangerous and inevitable. Thank you, Dante said quietly, for trusting me. For giving me this chance. Don't make me regret it. I won't. The promise was absolute. I swear on your brother's memory. I will keep you safe. No matter what it costs. Sophia believed him. Against every logical reason to be careful, She believed this dangerous man would move heaven and earth to protect her. The question was whether either of them would survive what was coming. The next 4 days collapsed into a blur of preparation. Dante secured a marriage license through connections Sophia didn't ask about. They exchanged vows in a civil ceremony with no guests, no celebration. Just a judge who clearly understood not to ask questions, and 2 people binding themselves together in order to survive. The ring Dante slid on to her finger was simple gold, elegant, understated. But when Sophia looked closer, she found words engraved on the inside, in Italian, Dal buio alla luce, from darkness into light. It was my grandmother's, Dante said quietly. She gave it to me before she died. Told me to give it to someone who could help me find my way back. The weight of that settled over Sophia like something sacred. This wasn't just strategy. This was real. They spent the days studying the notebook, memorizing names, faces, connections, building a case that would be impossible to argue with. Dante taught her about Stone's organization, who was loyal to the end, who might be turned, who would fight no matter what. Sophia contributed everything a journalist brings to things like this: the eye for detail, the instinct for narrative, the ability to take a mountain of information and make it into a story that couldn't be ignored. At night, they slept in separate rooms in their new safe location, both too alert to really rest, both quietly aware of the deadline. Getting closer, on the 4th morning, Sophia stood before a mirror while Dante's stylist worked with her dress, midnight blue silk, diamonds at her throat that carried the kind of wealth she had never even been close to. She looked like someone else, someone who belonged in Dante's world of polished danger and lethal elegance. "You're staring," she said, catching Dante's reflection over her shoulder. "I'm memorizing." He moved closer. She felt his presence like warmth behind her. "In case this is the last time I see you looking like this." "Whole safe. Planning to get me killed tonight." "Planning the opposite." His hands came to rest on her shoulders, steady, sure, but if something goes wrong? "If Stone makes a move," his voice went urgent, "I need you to promise me something." Sophia turned to face him. "What?" "Run, don't try to fight." "Don't try to save me." His expression was fierce and desperate at once. "Just run and finish what your brother started. I'm not leaving you behind. You will if I order you to." His grip tightened just slightly. "I've lost enough, Sophia." "I won't lose you too. Then don't lose me." She rose on her toes and kissed him. Not the brief formal touch from their ceremony, but something real, something desperate. A kiss that tasted like goodbye and like promises neither of them could guarantee to keep. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Let's go," Dante said, his voice rough. "Let's end this." The auction house blazed with cold elegance, the same venue where they'd first met, but different now. Where before Sophia had seen glamour, she now saw threat. Every smile hid calculation. Every laugh masked something darker. This was a room full of dangerous people wearing beautiful human faces, and she was walking among them as Dante Morti's wife. They made their entrance fashionably late, making sure every eye in the room had a chance to find them. Sophia felt the weight of all that attention like something physical pressing against her skin as Dante guided her across the floor. His hand possessive and protective at the small of her back. Whispers trailed after them. The notorious Dante Morti married to someone nobody recognized. The gossip spread like fire, exactly as they'd planned. Here, Dante murmured against her temple, the gesture looking intimate but carrying urgent information. 3 o'clock. Silver hair. Smiling like he owns the room, Sophia didn't turn her head. She learned that much. Instead, she tilted her face up toward Dante's, letting her fingers trace the line of his jaw. The gesture felt dangerously natural. "I see him." Callum Stone moved toward them with the ease of a man who had never needed to hurry. People orbited him, seeking approval, careful not to cause offense. He looked exactly like his photographs, distinguished, warm, nothing like the monster who had ordered Marco's death. But Sophia saw through it now, saw the calculation underneath the smile, saw the cold behind the eyes. This was a man who had built an empire on other people's suffering and called it success. Morty. Stone's voice was smooth as old whiskey. What a wonderful surprise. And with such beautiful company, Stone. Dante's greeting was flat and empty. His hand tightened slightly at Sophia's waist. "Allow me to introduce my wife, Sophia." The word landed in the room like A small explosion. Stone's expression didn't shift, but something moved behind his eyes, cold and rapid recalculation. Wife, Stone repeated, tasting the word like something dangerous. How extraordinary. I wasn't aware you'd married. When did this happen? Recently. We kept it private. How romantic. Stone's gaze moved over Sophia with an attention that made her skin crawl, though I confess some confusion. I was under the impression you were bound by a rather different arrangement, Morty. One that involved the late Isabella Rivera. The name of her dead sister hit Sophia like ice water, but she held herself perfectly still. They had prepared for this. Isabella's death ended there. Agreement, Dante said, carrying the calm certainty of someone speaking legal fact. As you know. Did it? Stone's smile sharpened. The original arrangement specified the eldest daughter of Marcus Rivera. Upon Isabella's passing, that obligation transferred to the surviving heir. His gaze settled on Sophia, predatory, patient. Tell me, my dear, are you aware your marriage to Morty fulfills a contract your own father signed 15 years ago? I am aware of my family's obligations, Sophia said, surprised by how steady she sounded, and I've fulfilled them willingly. Willingly. Stone turned the word over slowly. Fascinating. And what does your editor think of this sudden marriage? She's been quite worried about you. The mention of her mentor, her betrayer, sent a surge of fury through Sophia, but she used it, channeled it. She understands that the important things in life don't follow a convenient schedule, Sophia said. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Stone's pleasant veneer cracked, just slightly. Be careful, Mrs. Morty, he said softly. This world has a way of destroying people who don't understand how it operates. I understand it perfectly. Sophia's smile was sharp as broken glass. You just don't like that I'm refusing to follow the rules you wrote. For a moment, the tension between them was electric. Stone's hands flexed at his sides. His security shifted, reading the moment. The ballroom felt suddenly much smaller, balanced on the edge of something that could turn violent very fast. Then Dante moved, subtle but deliberate, positioning himself between Sophia and Stone. This conversation is over, he said quietly. Quietly was all he needed. Touch my wife, threaten her again. And what happened to her brother will look gentle compared to what I'll do to you. The promise was explicit, and based on the way Stone's men shifted, entirely credible. Stone stepped back. His smile returned, colder now, of course. Forgive me. He inclined his head in something shaped like respect. Enjoy the evening, Mrs. Morty. I suspect we'll be seeing quite a lot of each other. He walked away, but Sophia saw the look he exchanged with someone across the room, saw his hand move to his phone. Whatever temporary space they'd created wouldn't hold. We need to leave, Dante said, his voice tight. Now? But before they could move, a woman stepped into their path, older, elegant, cold pearls and colder eyes. Dante, darling, she purred, aren't you going to introduce me to your new bride? Dante's entire body locked up. Carla, not now. Oh, but it is very much now. The woman Carla turned toward Sophia, her smile carrying poison in it. Did he tell you about me, dear, about his previous marriage, how tragically it ended? Sophia felt the ground shift under her. Previous marriage, that was a long time ago, Dante said, his voice carrying a warning Carla chose to ignore. 5 years isn't so long. Carla's eyes glittered. Tell me, Mrs. Morty, did your husband mention that his first wife died under suspicious circumstances? That the investigation was quietly closed despite evidence, pointing to something much worse? The words were designed to cut, to plant doubt, to wedge something between them. Sophia felt Dante tense beside her, his grip becoming almost painful at her side. Carla, he said. His voice went deadly quiet. Walk away now. Or what? You'll do the same to me, she laughed. Bright and vicious. Your new wife should know what she's married into. Should know that you have a habit of enough. Sophia's voice cut through it cleanly. She stepped forward, meeting Carla's eyes without blinking. I know exactly who I married. I know what he's done, what he's capable of, and I know that whatever you're trying to accomplish with this right now, it won't work. Carla's expression stumbled, surprise breaking through the cruelty. My husband and I have an understanding. Sophia continued, her voice cool and certain. We're bound by more than love or convenience. We're bound by purpose, by justice, and nothing you say is going to change that. It was a performance built on half-truths. And the desperate hope that Dante would follow her lead. His hand found hers, squeezed once, trust. Solidarity. Now if you'll excuse us, Sophia said, her smile polished and perfectly sharp. My husband promised me a dance, and I never let him break his promises. She pulled Dante toward the dance floor, away from Carla's poison, away from Stone's watching eyes. They moved into position. Dante's arm around her waist, her hand at his shoulder, and they began to move. You didn't have to do that, Dante said quietly. Yes, I did. Sophia looked up at him, seeing old pain and old ghosts reflected in his expression. Whatever happened with your first wife, we can talk about it later. Right now we have a role to play. It wasn't what she implied, Dante said, his voice rough and low. My wife, her name was Alina. She was killed by Stone's people. She tried to leave, to get out of this life. The investigation was shut down because Stone had the lead detective in his pocket. Understanding moved through Sophia like cold water. That's why you want to bring him down. It's not just about my brother. Alina, Marco, dozens of others. Dante's arm tightened around her. He needs to answer for all of it. Then let's make sure he does. They danced through the rest of the song, using the movement to quietly map the room. Stone's security positions, the exits, the escape routes, but underneath all the strategy, Sophia felt something else building between them. Something quieter and more dangerous than any plan. When the music ended, Dante guided her to a quieter corner of the room. There's something else you need to know, he said, his expression gone serious, about the evidence, about how we use it. Before he could say another word, his phone moved silently in his jacket. He checked it, and his face went completely still. That particular kind of stillness that comes just before something happens. What is it? Sophia asked. Stone is calling his counsel early. They're meeting in 30 minutes. Dante's eyes locked onto hers. This is it? This is our chance. To do what? To end this. Dante reached into his jacket pocket and produced a small device. A flash drive. This has digital copies of your brother's notebook, annotated with the additional evidence I've been collecting. If we can get this to the right people tonight, before Stone has time to regroup, we can destroy him, which means you stay here, Sophia said, in this room full of his people, playing the devoted wife while I disappear to make the drop. Every instinct in her screamed at her to refuse, to insist they stay together, that separating now was suicide. But she looked at Dante's face and found the same quiet certainty she felt herself. This was their moment. Maybe their only one. How long? She asked. 20 minutes, maybe less if everything runs smooth. Dante's hands came up to frame her face. And if something goes wrong, then you run. His voice was urgent. There's a car in the north garage. Black, keys in the wheel well. You get out. You contact the prosecutor whose information I already put in your phone. You give them everything, Dante. Promise me, he was desperate now. Promise me you'll survive this. Sophia looked into his eyes, and what she saw there terrified her more than Stone, more than all the dangers surrounding them. She saw a man who had already decided that her life was worth more than his. No, she said, firmly, we both get out of this, or neither of us does. Those are the only two options. Dante's controlled expression fractured. I can't lose you. I've already lost too many people. Then don't lose me. Sophia rose on her toes and kissed him. Desperate and real, pouring months of tension and fear and fragile, terrifying hope into it. When they broke apart, both of them breathless, Dante stared at her with something that looked almost like wonder. Together, he said, the word carrying the weight of something much larger than a plan, always, they sealed it. Then they turned and walked toward the darkness together, hand in hand, ready to burn down an empire or die in the attempt. The council meeting was held on the 3rd floor, private elevator access, armed guards at the door. Dante and Sophia approached as people who belonged there, who had every right to walk through those doors. The guards knew Dante stepped aside, but their eyes tracked Sophia with barely hidden suspicion. She was the unknown variable, the potential problem. Inside, the room was expensive and cold, leather chairs surrounding a heavy table. Walls lined with old books and valuable art that probably hid cameras. 12 men and 3 women already seated. Every conversation in the room stopped the moment Dante walked in with Sophia beside him. Callum Stone sat at the head of the table, his expression precisely neutral, but she could see him recalculating behind his eyes. "Morty," Stone said pleasantly, "I don't recall extending an invitation to either of you. We invited ourselves." Dante's tone was easy, relaxed. His whole body was coiled ready. "I thought it was time we had an honest conversation about the future of your operation." Murmurs rippled around the table. Hostile, suspicious, one man broad, shouldered with an old scar cutting through his left eyebrow, pushed to his feet. "Who does he think he is walking in here with demands?" he snapped. "Sit down, Marcus," Stone said quietly. And the man sat. "Let's hear what Morty has to say." Dante pulled out his phone, connected it to the room's display, and suddenly Marco's notebook filled the wall. Page after page, meticulous, damning documentation. "This is a complete record of your operation," Dante said, his voice flat and factual. "Financial crimes, murder for hire, witness tampering, political corruption, names, dates, amounts, everything needed to prosecute every single person sitting in this room." The silence was total. Then a woman with silver jewelry and empty eyes laughed. "You expect us to believe you've suddenly grown a conscience," she said. "You who built your own operation on violence. This is a power move, nothing more." "It's not a move," Sophia said. Her voice carried through the room cleanly. Every face turned toward her. She felt the weight of their attention like something physical. But she didn't flinch. "My brother compiled this evidence before you murdered him," she said, steady despite the fury burning underneath. "Marco Rivera. Does anyone in this room remember that name? Or was he just another inconvenient problem you made disappear?" Stone's expression didn't change, but something moved behind his eyes. Recognition. Maybe even something that had once been regret before it died. "Your brother was given opportunities to walk away," he said quietly. "He chose not to take them. He chose to pursue the truth," Sophia said. "To fight corruption, and you killed him for it. I did what was necessary to protect this organization." Stone's voice stayed smooth, reasonable, as though they were discussing a business adjustment, not a murder. He spoke with the full confidence of a man who believed every person in that room was loyal, purchased, or too terrified to cross him. "Your brother threatened everything built here over decades. He had to be removed." The admission sat in the room like smoke. "Did you record that?" Sophia whispered to Dante. His smile was quiet and sharp, every word. Then everything broke at once. The scarred man lunged for Dante. Others reached for weapons. Stone's voice rose, trying to pull back control. But the moment was already gone. The careful facade had cracked, and violence poured through the gap. Dante moved with lethal precision, disarming the first attacker, using his own momentum against him. Sophia grabbed a heavy book from the shelf behind her and swung it hard at someone coming too fast. Adrenaline made her faster than she knew she could be. But they were outnumbered, outgunned, and the guards outside were already responding to the noise. "Go." Dante shoved Sophia toward a service door she hadn't noticed. "The roof, now. Not without you. I'll be right behind you. Go." He threw another attacker into a chair with controlled force. Sophia ran. Through the service door, up narrow stairs that smelled like cleaning products and urgency. Behind her, shouts, gunfire. Dante's voice raised and commanding. She burst through onto the roof. Cold night air hit her face. The city spread out below, indifferent and distant. She turned, waited, counting seconds that each felt too long. Dante came through the door 15 seconds later, blood on his shirt, expression grim. "Are you hurt?" Sophia grabbed his arm. "And not mine." He caught her hand and pulled her toward the far edge of the roof. "We jump." "What?" The next building. It's the only way out. Trust me." He was already running, taking her with him. They hit the edge at full speed, and then they were in the air, the gap between buildings opening below them. Sophia's scream got swallowed by wind, then the impact, rolling. Dante's body taking most of it, protecting her even while he was fighting for balance. They came up running, not stopping, not checking what hurt. Behind them, figures appeared on the first roof. Weapons out, Dante led her through a maze of rooftops, jumping gaps, sliding down fire escapes. Using every piece of knowledge he had about how this city was built to stay ahead of the people chasing them. Sophia followed, lungs burning, legs screaming, adrenaline the only thing still keeping her moving. They dropped into an alley. Dante checked both directions, then pulled her toward a plain door that looked like nothing. Where? Safe house, new one. They don't know about this. Inside was sparse. Bare necessities, no personality, just what you need to survive. Dante locked multiple bolts, checked his phone, then turned to Sophia. "Are you okay?" His hands were already moving over her, checking for injuries she might not have noticed yet. "I'm fine. Her legs stopped working. Dante caught her, lowered them both to the floor, and suddenly she was shaking. The delayed impact of everything crashing over her all at once. "You're safe," Dante murmured, holding her close. "You're safe, I've got you." Sophia pressed her face against his chest, felt his heartbeat, too fast but steady. Alive, they had survived, against odds that had never been in their favor. They had survived. "Did you get it?" she asked, muffled. "The recording, I got it. Stone confessing to your brother's murder on recording with 14 people as witnesses." Dante's arms pulled her closer. "We have everything we need, so what happens now? Now we make the drop, get the evidence to people who aren't compromised." He pulled back slightly, his hands framing her face. "And then we disappear, both of us, together." "Together," Sophia repeated, the word carrying everything they had been through. Everything they had survived. Dante kissed her, soft and long, a promise of futures neither of them had dared to imagine until now. Outside, sirens cut through the city. The world was still hunting them. But in this temporary safe place, they let themselves breathe, let themselves hope, let themselves believe, just for this moment, that the right thing might actually win. The drop happened at dawn. A federal prosecutor, Dante, had carefully vetted on his own terms. A public park? Daylight, witnesses. They handed over the flash drive, the recordings, copies of Marco's notebook, evidence that would reshape criminal prosecution in this city for a generation. "We'll need your testimony," the prosecutor said, looking at Sophia. "Both of you. She'll testify." Dante said. "I won't." The prosecutor looked at him. "My testimony would be poisoned before I opened my mouth. The defense would use everything I've done to destroy the evidence itself." Dante's logic was clean and inevitable. Sophia is a respected journalist. Her testimony carries weight that mine never could. Let her be the face of this case. The prosecutor hesitated, then nodded. "We'll be in touch." They returned to the safe house. Sophia's phone had been ringing without stopping for hours. Her editor, former colleagues, news outlets she'd always wanted to work for. Word had leaked about Stone's arrest. About the evidence. About the journalist who had walked into a criminal world and come out with proof that would bring dozens of powerful people down. She was about to become very well known and very alone. "You're leaving," Sophia said. She watched Dante pack a bag with quiet efficiency. "I have to. Too many people want me dead now. Stone's remaining people. Other organizations who see me as a loose end." He didn't look at her. "I've arranged protection for you. Around the clock until the trials are over. You'll be safe." "I don't want to be safe without you." Dante's hands stilled. He turned, his expression carefully held together. "Sophia, don't." She crossed the room, stopped in front of him. "Don't give me the speech. Don't tell me this was always temporary, that the marriage was only strategy, that we both knew how this would end. It was, we did. Maybe." Her hands curled into the front of his shirt. But somewhere between fake vows and rooftop escapes, it stopped being strategy, at least for me. Dante's control broke. He pulled her against him. "Of course it's real." his voice rough against her hair. You think I'm leaving because I don't feel it. I'm leaving because every day I stay puts you in more danger. Then let me come with you. No, absolute. You have a story to tell, your brother's story. You have trials to testify at. Justice to see through to the end. I won't take that from you. And after, Sophia asked after the trials, after the convictions. Dante stepped back just enough to hold her face in both hands. After, if you still want to find me, I'll be there. He pulled a photograph from his pocket. A villa. Azure water, golden light on old stone. I bought this months ago. Somewhere to escape to if I ever actually got the chance. The address is on the back. Sophia stared at the photograph. Her vision going soft at the edges. You're asking me to choose. I'm giving you a real choice, a chance at a normal life. You could walk away from all of this darkness, build a career on the story of a lifetime, move forward. His voice went rough. Or you could come find me when you're ready, and we could build something new together. Whatever you decide, I'll understand. You're an idiot, Sophia said. Tears streaming openly now. Probably. I love you. Dante's expression broke open. I love you too. More than I thought I was still capable of. They kissed again. Desperate and tender and full of everything neither of them could say out loud. When they finally separated, both unsteady, Dante pressed the photograph into her palm. 3 months, he said. Give yourself 3 months, testify, process, decide what you actually want. If you still want this, want me, come find me. And if you're not there, I'll wait as long as it takes. 3 months became 4, then 5. Sophia threw herself into the trials. Into her reporting, into making sure Marco's death meant something permanent and undeniable. She testified in trial after trial. Watched Stone's empire come down piece by piece. Watched Russo and the others receive their convictions. Watched justice, finally, actually arrive. Her investigative series ran in 6 parts and won every major journalism award. Book deals came, speaking invitations. An offer at a paper she had dreamed of since she was 20. 2. Everything she'd ever wanted professionally was suddenly within reach. But at night, she looked at the photograph of the villa and wondered if she had the courage to walk toward the life she actually wanted. 6 months after Dante left, Sophia made her decision. She wrote her resignation letter, sold her apartment, packed 1 bag. At the airport, her editor called one last time. You're really doing this? She asked, walking away at the peak of everything. I'm not walking away. Sophia watched planes rise into the sky through the terminal glass. I'm walking toward something. Finally, the flight felt endless. Sophia held the photograph the whole way, memorizing every detail. Terrified and more alive than she'd felt in years. She had spent her whole career chasing other people's stories. Maybe it was time to start living inside her own. The villa was exactly like the picture. Golden stone above water so blue it looked invented. Gardens full of lemon trees and jasmine and old stone paths. Sophia stood at the gate, heart slamming, suddenly frozen with doubt. What if he'd changed his mind? What if 6 months was too long? What if the door opened? Dante stood in the warm light from inside, dressed simply. Linen, easy, unhurried. He looked different, lighter somehow, like something heavy had finally been set down. But his eyes, dark and steady and fixed entirely on her, were exactly the same. Sophia. Her name in his voice was a prayer and a promise at the same time. She didn't speak. She couldn't. She crossed the space between them and walked into his arms, and Dante caught her. Held her like she was the answer to every question he'd been carrying. You came? He breathed against her hair. I'm sorry it took so long, she said. You're here now. That's everything. His smile, when she pulled back to see it, was open. Unguarded, completely real, come inside, he said. Let me show you our home. Our home. The words landed on Sophia like a blessing. There were months ahead of them still, years of healing, questions about who they were now, outside of trauma and vengeance and the ghosts that had brought them together. But standing in the golden Italian light, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in so long she'd almost forgotten what it was. Peace, hope, the quiet, settled certainty that she had made exactly the right choice. Sophia woke to sunlight and the smell of lemons. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she woke without the weight of grief pressing down on her. Without the driving urgency of vengeance, she woke simply to morning, and it was beautiful. Dante's side of the bed was empty but still warm. She stretched, her whole body relaxed and unhurried, then followed the smell of coffee to the terrace. He was standing there, espresso in hand, looking out at the bright morning sea, shirt open, tattoos catching the light, hair soft from sleep. He looked nothing like the controlled, dangerous man she'd first encountered. He looked human, he looked real. "Good morning," she said softly. He turned, and the smile that crossed his face was the kind that changes a whole room. "You're awake? I was trying to let you sleep. I've had enough sleep." Sophia moved into his arms, feeling his warmth. The solid, living reality of him. "How long have you been up?" "An hour, maybe 2. His hands traced slow patterns across her back. "I keep waking up expecting you to be gone. Expecting this to be something I imagined." "I'm real," she said, pressing her palm flat against his chest. Feeling his heartbeat. "This is real. We survived. We made it. We did," Dante said quietly, like he still couldn't fully believe it. "Against every possible odd, we actually made it." They stood there as the sun climbed higher and warmer. The village below them waking up slowly, bells, voices, the ordinary sounds of ordinary lives. They were ordinary now, or as ordinary as two people made by fire and loss could ever become. "What do we do today?" Sophia asked eventually. "Whatever we want." Dante's smile was open and easy and free. "That's the whole point. No missions, no danger, just time as much as we want." They spent the morning walking the property. Olive groves and herb gardens, and hidden corners that invited you to stay a while. Dante showed her how he'd been learning to tend the land, to grow things rather than destroy them. His hands, so practiced at violence, were equally patient at coaxing life from soil. In the afternoon, they drove to the village market. Sophia watched Dante bargain with vendors in easy, fluent Italian. Watched him laugh with an elderly shopkeeper who clearly adored him. Watched him be a normal person in the world. "You're staring," he said, catching her. "I'm seeing you," she said. "Really seeing you. Maybe for the first time." "And what do you see?" "Someone trying very hard to be good." She took his hand. "Someone succeeding." That evening they cooked dinner together, fresh pasta and vegetables from the market, wine from a vineyard just outside the village. They ate on the terrace as the sun went down, painting the sky in colors that felt almost excessive. "Tell me something," Dante said as they lingered over the last of the wine. "Something I don't know about you." "Like what?" "Anything, everything." He leaned back in his chair, relaxed in a way she'd never fully seen before. "We got married under pressure, ran for our lives, barely stopped to breathe. I want to know the things people learn about each other when things are normal. Your favorite color, what you wanted to be when you were a kid, what makes you laugh at the wrong moment." Sophia felt something warm bloom in her chest. "Green, like the olive trees. I wanted to be a war correspondent when I was 12. I thought I'd see the whole world that way." She paused, thinking. "And I laugh at terrible puns. The worse they are, the funnier I find them," noted. Dante's smile was quiet and soft. "Favorite color is black. I wanted to be an architect when I was young. Design buildings instead of running operations out of them." He looked out at the water. "And I laugh when someone trips over their own feet. I know it's unkind. I can't seem to help it." They traded stories well into the night. Childhood memories, embarrassing moments, small, ordinary details that made them human to each other. And Sophia understood that this was what Dante had been quietly asking for this whole time. Not grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but the everyday intimacy of truly knowing someone, of being known back. Over the weeks that followed, they found their rhythm. Mornings in the garden, afternoons swimming in the small cove below the villa, evenings cooking, reading, simply existing together without agenda or urgency. They were learning each other the way that fear had never allowed, the careful way Dante made coffee, Sophia's habit of leaving books open face down mid-page, the thousand small things that made them who they were. But healing was never a straight line. Some nights Dante woke gasping, still caught inside nightmares of his former life. Some days Sophia found herself crying without warning, grief arriving uninvited at random moments. They learned to be with each other in those places, to offer comfort without requiring strength, to say out loud when things were hard instead of pretending everything was fine. "I'm afraid," Dante admitted one night, after a bad dream had left him sitting at the edge of the bed in the dark, "that I'll never be clean of the things I've done, that underneath everything that's still all there is." "You're not a monster," Sophia said, sitting beside him. "Monsters don't feel this. Monsters don't spend 6 months gathering evidence to keep a promise to a dead man. Monsters don't learn how to grow olive trees because they want to create something. Instead of take something, you see me too kindly. I see you clearly, all of it, the good and the terrible and everything in between, and I choose this, I choose us. Why?" The question was raw, honest, a little broken. "After everything I've been, after everything I've done. Why?" Sophia thought carefully before she spoke. "Because you chose me first, in that ballroom when you could have walked away and let it happen. Every day after that, when you could have saved yourself and left me to fight alone, you kept choosing my survival over your own safety." She pressed her palm to his chest. "How could I not choose you back?" Dante kissed her then. Soft and slow, a kiss that held gratitude and wonder, and the beginning, maybe, of self-forgiveness. Summer turned into autumn. The lemon trees gave fruit that Dante taught Sophia to harvest. They made an old family recipe together, following instructions from a notebook that had belonged to his grandmother. When Sophia took her first sip, Dante watched her face like the answer to something mattered. "It's perfect," she said. His relief was so genuine, and it made her chest ache. She would be happy to know someone's keeping it going. "Tell me about her," Sophia said. "Your grandmother. You mention her sometimes. I want to actually know her." So Dante told stories about a woman who had come to a new country with nothing, who built a restaurant through pure stubbornness, who believed in honor and family and making choices that added to the world instead of taking from it, who had given her grandson a ring and told him to save it for someone who could help him find his way home. "She was right," Sophia said quietly when he finished. She looked down at the simple gold band on her finger. "I'm glad she kept it for me." The engraving on the inside caught the evening light. "Dal buio alla luce." From darkness into light, they were living that, building a life so different from everything they'd left behind that it sometimes felt like they'd become entirely different people. But it was theirs, earned and fragile and completely real. And as the sun dropped below the horizon and turned the water copper, Sophia understood something simple and certain. She hadn't just found safety here, she had found home.